as what they tell us first, not as a suggestion. As a rule, together is safer. Together is stronger. Together means no one falls alone. But no one ever escapes. What happens when the ground gives way, and the team keeps marching? At the beginning, there are introductions. Smile is practiced at mirrors, and to shake it too firmly, everyone eager to belong to something that sounds solid, clear, unit, family, words with soft edges, words that promise shelter. You stripped inside them willingly. That first teamwork feels like warmth. Someone covers your shade. Someone finishes your sentence. Someone says, don't worry, I've got you done. And very well, they do. The rhythm settles in. You run your own. Not the whole machine, just the lever in your side to pull. You pull it well. They nod. You are useful. No one tells you that usefulness is ink. So, the word gets heavier, but the idea is shattered. That's the comfort of it. No single hand causes damage. No single voice makes the decision. Everything is spread thing enough that you'll never believe works. When something breaks, you hate the phrase for the first time. IT wasn't just enough, and the relief is immediate and dangerous. Teamwork teaches you skill. You never went through how to disappear without leaving. The first scream doesn't sound like a scream. It sounds like a new name, a number that they read, a name quietly removed from the sketch room. You notice it, of course you do, but you notice something else, too. No one else reacts, so you wait. That's teamwork, isn't it? Reading the room, staying in sync. Someone says, not our department done. Someone else says, of our pay grade done. A third says nothing at all. And silence, your counts as agreement. When enough people share it, the team grows closer after that. Inside jokes, shared glances, a subtle understanding of what questions slow things down. You'd stop asking them, not because you don't care, but because you do. You care about stating. Teamwork sharpens its teeth slowly. They tell you the team needs unity. They say dissent causes fractures. They say fractures lead to collapse. They don't say collapse of web. They don't have to. You'll be seeing what happens to the ones who speak out of rhythm. They don't get fired loudly. They fade, and the team keeps working. One night or one deadline, or one emergency, the choice finally reaches you. It arrives without ceremony. You see the whole picture for half a second, long enough to understand what this will cost someone else. Not you. Never you. Someone else. You open your mouth. The room is still, and then someone reminds you of the deadline. The letters, the shared responsibility. Someone says, we stop now. We all go down. They don't say that we continue. Someone else does. They don't need to. You close your mouth. The team exhales as one body. The system runs. Later, when the idea is over, someone will say, that we did what we had to deal done. Another will say, when one person does this done, they'll look at you when they say idea. Not accusing, but reassuring. And the worst part is, how comforting it feels. Because monsters who work alone can be stopped, but monsters who work together are called teams. Time passes. You stop remembering the faces of the ones who fell through the cracks. You remember the procedures instead, the workflows, the best practices. You train new people. You teach them how not to see. They ask questions. You smile lightly and say, you'll get used to IT done, and they will. That's the mental and teamwork. Eventually, someone will ask, how did this happen question work? And the team will answer honestly, IT wasn't one of you as not, and it will be true. Because teamwork doesn't need violence. It only needs coordination. It doesn't demand cruelty, just participation, just silence, just alignment, just one more lever built on time. So when they tell you,
Crimson Mirrors, a story of obsession and revenge. Chapter 1, The Breach. The city had long forgotten Dominic Vale and Adrian Cross. That was the point. The erasure of their names, their influence, their lives, gave them clarity. Or so they believed. Dominic sat in his penthouse office, rain dripping against the windows, watching the city hum below. He counted the seconds of every pedestrian crossing the street, imagined each one as a chess piece in a game only he could see. And yet, the image that obsessed him most, the man who had stolen from him years ago, always returned. Adrian Cross. Adrian had been careful after their feud, vanishing from public records, leaving no trace. But Dominic knew better. He could feel Adrian's presence, lurking in the edges of his vision, appearing in every reflection and shadow. It was no longer a simple rivalry. It had become a rhythm, a pulse of obsession, threading through every thought. And that night, the first message arrived. No sender. No address. Just a single photograph, Adrian, standing in an alley Dominic had walked through that very afternoon. Dominic stared at it until the rain blurred the glass. He didn't call the police. He didn't analyze the metadata. He smiled. Because Adrian had returned. And the game had begun again. Chapter 2, The Hunt begins. Adrian, in his dim-lit basement office, felt the same tension. He had felt Dominic's gaze for months, long before any evidence of contact. Every move in the city seemed to confirm it. The way traffic slowed, the way shadows shifted, Dominic was watching, always watching. He drafted plans, built traps in the virtual world, sabotaged accounts and communications. Yet, nothing satisfied him. He needed the confrontation. He needed to see Dominic, to confront the man who had destroyed his life and haunted his dreams. Sleep became impossible. Dreams were filled with Dominic's presence, leaning from stairwells, smiling from behind glass doors, whispering secrets only Adrian knew. Soon, both men realized that revenge was no longer about victory. It had become survival, but survival was now measured in delusions, paranoia, and the slow erosion of reality. Chapter 3, Hallucinations. Dominic began seeing Adrian everywhere. Not just in reflections, but in the pattern of cracks in the wall, in advertisements, in random strangers whose gestures matched Adrian's perfectly. At first, he laughed it off. Then he questioned it. Then he accepted it. Adrian experienced the same phenomenon. In the subway, in cafes, in empty streets at night, Dominic's face, or what his mind insisted was Dominic's face, appeared. He began whispering to himself, narrating movements, rehearsing strikes, rehearsing defenses. Both men stopped leaving the house alone. Every encounter with a stranger became a test, a rehearsal, a hallucination of betrayal. Sleep was abandoned. Food became a secondary concern. The city itself blurred into a cage of mirrors and shadows. Chapter 4, Escalation. Their attacks escalated. Not just financial, but personal. Files destroyed, reputations ruined, homes broken into and left staged as warnings. Each strike fed the hallucinations, confirming for each man that the other was omnipresent, unstoppable. Dominic awoke one night convinced Adrian had entered his apartment while he slept. Nothing was taken, nothing damaged, but a note lay on his desk, soon. Adrian discovered a similar note days later, I see you. Reality thinned further. Each believed the other could appear anywhere, at any time. Shadows were no longer shapes, they were intelligence. Every stranger was a potential threat. Every reflection a spy. Chapter 5, Convergence. Finally, they converged in the abandoned industrial district outside the city. Both men had prepared meticulously. Weapons, plans, traps. But neither could trust reality. Each moment was punctuated by hallucinations. Dominic saw Adrian leaning from the rafters, smiling, mocking. Adrian saw Dominic's eyes in every window, every metal sheet, every puddle. The confrontation began with words. You came, Dominic said, voice low, rasping. Or maybe I came. I can't tell anymore. Adrian laughed quietly, unnerving. Does it matter? We are here. We always find each other. And then the violence started slow, deliberate, punctuated by confusion. They fought, but their minds betrayed them. Dominic struck, missing Adrian's body entirely. Adrian ducked, only to collide with a phantom Dominic that had appeared in his hallucination. Blood and reality mixed. Each strike was both physical and imagined. Shadows became hands, voices became commands, and every motion fed their obsession further. Chapter 6, The Spiral. Hours passed, or perhaps minutes. They could no longer tell. Time itself had become unreliable. The storm outside had risen to a howl, blending with the voices in their heads. The warehouse seemed alive, breathing, mocking them. Adrian whispered, "Do you see me?" Dominic shook his head. I don't know anymore." They collided again, both striking and dodging shadows. Pain was real, but terror blurred its edges. Each man was both hunter and hunted, trapped in the labyrinth of his own mind. At some point, Adrian tripped over debris, and Dominic fell on top of him, both collapsing into a heap of blood and metal. They stared at each other, breathing heavily, realizing the truth. They had been destroying themselves as much as each other. Chapter 7, The Aftermath. Dawn came gray and cold. Rain washed the concrete floors. Both men were barely conscious, hallucinations fading only slightly in the light. They could hear the city stirring miles away, but could no longer discern whether the world beyond mattered. Dominic whispered, "We can't continue." Adrian nodded, voice weak. "We're broken." And yet, even as they staggered to separate exits, neither could let go. The obsession remained. Shadows followed them home. Dreams were haunted. Every movement, every reflection reminded them of the other. Their revenge had been delivered, but victory had no meaning. Reality itself had been sacrificed, leaving only the compulsion to watch, to strike, to prove, endlessly, that the other could not escape. In the city, people continued their lives, unaware of the invisible war. And Dominic and Adrian continued theirs, trapped in the Hall of Mirrors, chasing each other, hallucinations merging with reality, obsession overtaking life itself. The cycle would never end.